Lieutenant Marcus Reed had seen a lot in his 12 years as a Navy SEAL. He'd survived firefights in 3 different countries, pulled his teammates from burning buildings, and earned more commendations than he could count. But right now, sitting in a hospital bed at the Naval Medical Center in San Diego with a bullet wound in his shoulder, he felt about as useful as a broken compass. The nurse who walked into his room looked nothing like what Marcus expected. She was maybe 5'4", with her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her scrubs had little cartoon animals on them. She couldn't have been more than 30 years old, and she moved with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd done this job 1,000 times. "Good morning, Lieutenant Reed," she said, checking his chart. "I'm Sarah Chen. I'll be your nurse today. How's that shoulder feeling?" Marcus grunted. "Been better, been worse." Sarah smiled, a patient expression that told him she'd heard that line before. She began checking his vitals with practiced hands. Marcus noticed her fingers were steady, her movements precise. Still, he couldn't help but feel a little resentful. Here he was, a warrior sidelined by a lucky shot from some terrorist in Afghanistan, being taken care of by someone who probably spent her days dealing with bedpans and blood pressure cuffs. "You been doing this long?" he asked, more to make conversation than out of real interest. "Long enough," Sarah replied, making notes on his chart. "Your wound is healing well. The doctor should be by in about an hour to check on you." Over the next few days, Marcus saw Sarah regularly. She was competent, he'd give her that. Never forgot his medication, always knew exactly what his numbers should be, and had a gentle touch when changing his bandages. But there was something else about her, something he couldn't quite place. The way her eyes scanned the room when she entered, the way she moved with a fluidity that seemed almost tactical. "You military?" he asked one afternoon. Sarah paused for just a fraction of a second. "Navy," she said simply. "I'm a nurse in the Navy Nurse Corps." "No, I mean real military, combat." Her expression didn't change, but Marcus saw something flash in her eyes. "I'm a nurse, Lieutenant. That's what I do." Marcus's teammate, Petty Officer Jake Sullivan, visited that evening. Jake had taken some shrapnel in the same operation but was recovering faster. He flopped into the visitor's chair with his usual careless energy. "Man, I'm going crazy in this place," Jake complained. "How much longer they gonna keep us here?" "Doc says another week for me," Marcus replied. "You?" "Few more days maybe." Jake glanced toward the door. "Hey, you got that cute nurse, the little Asian one?" "Nurse Chen, yeah." "Lucky you," Jake grinned. "She's easy on the eyes at least, makes being stuck here a little better." Marcus frowned. "Show some respect, Sullivan." "What, I'm just saying she's pretty. Nothing wrong with that." When Sarah came in to check Marcus's vitals an hour later, he noticed Jake's eyes following her around the room. She ignored the attention completely, professional to her core. "Your blood pressure's a bit elevated, Lieutenant," she said. "Try to get some rest tonight." "Will do, Nurse Chen." After she left, Jake let out a low whistle. "Man, I bet she's never seen anything more dangerous than a needle. Must be nice, having a safe job like that." Marcus didn't respond, but something about Jake's comment bothered him. He couldn't say why. The attack came on a Tuesday night. Marcus was half asleep when he heard the first gunshot. His training kicked in instantly, every sense suddenly sharp and focused. 2 more shots followed, then screaming from somewhere down the hallway. He rolled out of bed, his shoulder screaming in protest. The IV pole clattered to the floor. Through the small window in his door, he could see people running, medical staff in scrubs fleeing in panic. Then he saw them, 4 men in dark clothing carrying assault rifles, moving with the practiced efficiency of trained soldiers. Terrorists. Somehow, they'd gotten into the hospital. Marcus's mind raced. He was unarmed, wounded, and trapped in a hospital gown. He looked around his room desperately for anything that could serve as a weapon. The door burst open, but it wasn't the terrorists. It was Sarah Chen. Except she looked nothing like the quiet nurse who'd been checking his vitals for the past week. She was carrying a rifle. Where the hell had she gotten a rifle? And her entire demeanor had changed. Her face was set in an expression of absolute focus, her movements sharp and purposeful. "Lieutenant, stay down and stay quiet," she ordered. Her voice had changed too. It wasn't the gentle tone she used when asking about his pain levels. This was the voice of someone used to giving orders in combat. "Nurse Chen, what?" "Not now." She moved to the door, checking the hallway with the smooth motion of a trained operator. "There are at least 15 hostiles in the building, maybe more. They've already hit the ER and they're working their way up. I'm getting you and the other patients on this floor to safety." "Where did you get that rifle?" "Security station. The guard didn't make it." Her voice was steady, but Marcus saw her jaw tighten. "I need you mobile. Can you walk?" "Yeah." Marcus ripped out his IV. "Who are you?" Sarah glanced back at him, and for the first time he saw the real person beneath the nurse's uniform. "Lieutenant Sarah Chen, Naval Special Warfare Development Group, SEAL Team 3, currently on medical leave and working as a nurse while I recover from a back injury." Marcus stared. "You're a SEAL?" "One of 6 women who have made it through Bud-S training so far." She checked her rifle. "We can do the whole surprised conversation later if we survive. Right now, I need you to help me get the patients who can walk down to the secure ward on the 2nd floor. The ones who can't walk will have to come back for." The sound of gunfire erupted from somewhere close by. Sarah didn't flinch. "How many patients on this floor?" Marcus asked, his SEAL training overriding his shock. 12, 6 mobile, 6 bedridden, plus 3 nurses who didn't make it out." "We need more weapons." "Working on it." Sarah handed him a pistol. "Took this off another guard, 15 rounds, make them count." They moved into the hallway together. Marcus's shoulder throbbed with every step, but he pushed the pain aside. 3 doors down, they found Jake Sullivan already out of bed, looking terrified but ready to fight. "Reed, what the hell is happening?" "Terrorists in the hospital, we're evacuating." Marcus gestured to Sarah. "This is Lieutenant Chen, she's a SEAL." Jake's eyes widened. "The nurse, you're shitting me." "Save it." Sarah was already moving to the next room. "Help me get these patients moving." Over the next 10 minutes, they gathered the 6 mobile patients, all military personnel recovering from various injuries. Sarah worked with swift efficiency, calm and controlled even as the sounds of gunfire grew closer. She transformed completely from the gentle nurse into a combat operator. "Okay, listen up," Sarah addressed the group in a low, firm voice. "We're moving to the secure ward 2 floors down. It's a hardened space with reinforced doors designed for exactly this kind of situation. Stay low, stay quiet, and do exactly what I say. Understood?" Everyone nodded. They made it to the stairwell without incident. Sarah took point, moving like liquid shadow down the stairs. Marcus brought up the rear, his pistol ready. They could hear shouting and gunfire from other parts of the hospital. How many terrorists were there? They just reached the 2nd floor landing when 3 men rounded the corner below them. Assault rifles up, searching. Sarah didn't hesitate. 3 shots perfectly placed. All 3 men dropped before they could get a round off. "Move," she commanded. They rushed down the remaining stairs, stepping over the bodies. Sarah grabbed one of the fallen rifles, checked it, and slung it over her shoulder. "Reed, take that AK. Sullivan, you too." The secure ward was 50 feet down the corridor. They could see the reinforced door, designed to protect high-value patients or VIPs during exactly this kind of emergency. They almost made it. A group of 6 terrorists emerged from a side hallway, directly between them and safety. Both groups froze for a split second. Then all hell broke loose. Sarah dropped to one knee, firing in controlled bursts. Marcus and Jake opened up as well. The mobile patients scrambled for cover. Bullets tore through the walls. One of the patients, a young Marine, took a round in the leg and went down screaming. Sarah moved like nothing Marcus had ever seen. She took out 3 of the terrorists in as many seconds, her movements fluid and precise. When her rifle clicked empty, she dropped it and drew a pistol from somewhere, not missing a beat. 2 more shots, 2 more enemies down. The last terrorist tried to run. Sarah's bullet caught him in the back. Casualties, she snapped. PFC Morrison, leg wound, Marcus reported. Sarah was already moving to the fallen Marine. Sullivan, get that door open. Reed, cover us. She worked on Morrison with the same steady hands she'd used to check Marcus's bandages, but now those hands were covered in blood and moving with desperate speed. Through and through, missed the artery. You're going to be okay, son. They got everyone into the secure ward. Sarah sealed the reinforced door behind them and immediately went to the computer terminal. This ward has independent security systems, she explained, typing rapidly. I can see what's happening in the rest of the hospital. The screens flickered to life. Marcus watched in growing horror as camera feeds showed terrorists moving through the corridors. They were executing anyone they found, doctors, nurses, patients. This wasn't just an attack. It was a massacre. How many? Jake asked, his voice shaking. Sarah's fingers flew over the keyboard. I'm counting 42 hostiles, well-armed, well-trained. This was planned. Why? One of the other patients asked. Why attack a hospital? Because it's full of wounded military personnel, Marcus said grimly. We're targets, symbols. Sarah pulled up another screen. Security forces are responding, but they're getting pinned down. The terrorists have taken the main entrances. SWAT is at least 20 minutes out. We can't wait 20 minutes, Marcus said. They're killing everyone out there. Sarah looked at him, and he saw the calculation in her eyes. She was weighing options, considering possibilities. This was someone who'd been trained to make impossible decisions. There are 34 patients in the wards above us who can't move on their own, she said quietly. If we stay here, we're safe, but they'll die. The room fell silent. How many hostiles between us and them? Marcus asked. Rough estimate, 35 to 40. They're spread out through floors 3 and 4. Jake laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. You can't be serious. There are 3 of us who can fight plus 6 walking wounded against 40 trained terrorists. Sarah didn't look away from the screens. I've done worse odds. When? Jake demanded. Yemen 2023. My team got ambushed. 11 of us against 50-plus hostiles. We made it out. Her voice was steady, matter-of-fact. But I lost 4 teammates doing it. Marcus understood what she wasn't saying. She'd made the call to fight impossible odds before. People had died, but some had lived. I'm not ordering anyone to come with me, Sarah continued. But I'm going. Those people upstairs are my responsibility. You're a nurse, Jake said. Your responsibility is to stay alive and take care of the patients you already saved. I'm a SEAL, Sarah corrected him quietly. My responsibility is to protect those who can't protect themselves, even if it costs me everything. She stood up and started checking her weapons. She had 1 rifle, 2 pistols, and maybe 100 rounds total, against 40 enemies. Marcus thought about the 3 Navy nurses who died when the terrorists first came in. He thought about the doctors and patients being executed in the hallways. He thought about the 34 helpless people in the wards above them, waiting for death. He checked his rifle. I'm with you, he said. Sarah looked at him. Your shoulder. I'm a SEAL too, Lieutenant, and I'm not letting you go alone. Jake cursed quietly, colorfully, then he stood up. Got him, Nit, I'm in too. One of the other mobile patients, a Marine sergeant with a healing chest wound, rose to his feet. Marines don't sit out fights, ma'am. Neither do Rangers, said an Army specialist with his arm in a sling. Sarah looked at them all. For just a moment, the hard combat operator facade cracked, and Marcus saw the real person underneath. Someone who'd been underestimated her entire career. Someone who'd fought to prove herself every single day. Someone who was tired of being seen as just a nurse in cartoon scrubs. "Okay," she said, "here's what we're going to do." She pulled up the hospital schematics and began to plan their impossible mission. As Marcus listened to her tactical breakdown, the routes they'd take, the threats they'd face, the odds they'd overcome, he realized something. He'd spent a week being taken care of by one of the finest warriors he'd ever met, and he'd never even noticed. That was about to change. The plan was simple in concept, nearly impossible in execution. The hospital's fourth floor housed the ICU and the post-surgical recovery ward. 34 patients who couldn't move on their own, most on ventilators or in critical condition. The terrorists were systematically working their way through the building. Based on Sarah's analysis of the security feeds, they had maybe 15 minutes before the fourth floor was overrun. "We split into 2 teams," Sarah explained, marking routes on a hastily drawn map. "Team 1, that's me and Reed, we go up the east stairwell and come in from the ICU side. Team 2, Sullivan and Ramirez, you take the west stairwell and enter through post-surgical. We create a crossfire, take out as many hostiles as we can, and push them toward the central elevators. The blast doors there can be sealed remotely." "And the patients?" asked Sergeant Ramirez, the Marine with the chest wound. "Once we clear the floor, we get them to the freight elevator. It goes straight down to the basement, which connects to the parking structure. We can get them out that way." "That's assuming we survive the clearing part," Jake muttered. Sarah looked at him steadily. "I won't lie to you, some of us might not make it. If anyone wants to stay here where it's safe, no judgment." Nobody moved. "All right then." Sarah distributed the weapons and ammunition they'd scavenged. It wasn't much. 3 rifles, 4 pistols, and maybe 200 rounds total. Remember, these aren't street thugs. They're trained soldiers, probably mercenaries or foreign operatives. They'll be disciplined, coordinated, and willing to die for whatever they believe in. Our only advantages are surprise, knowledge of the terrain, and the fact that they think everyone in this hospital is either running or helpless. She checked her rifle one last time. "Questions?" Marcus had about 100, but none that mattered right now. "Let's move." They left 2 of the mobile patients, one with a broken leg, one with severe burns, to guard the secure ward. The Army specialist, despite his sling, insisted on coming. "I can shoot left-handed, ma'am." Sarah led Marcus up the east stairwell with practiced silence. Even injured, even after months of nursing duty, she moved like a ghost. Marcus, despite his years of SEAL training, found himself impressed. She'd taken 3 terrorists in the earlier firefight with a speed and precision that would have made any operator proud. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus whispered as they climbed. "Make it quick." "Why nursing, if you're a SEAL?" Sarah paused at the 3rd-floor landing, checking the door's window before answering. "I took an RPG blast in Afghanistan, compressed fracture in my lower spine. They said I'd never operate again, maybe never walk again." She glanced back at him. "Proving them wrong on the walking part took 8 months. I figured while I recovered, I might as well do something useful. I'd already been through field medic training, so I went to nursing school. Turned out I was good at it." "You planning to go back to active combat?" "That's the question, isn't it?" She pushed open the door to the 4th floor a crack. "I passed my physical 2 weeks ago. I could request reassignment to my team, but part of me wonders if saving lives in a hospital isn't more important than taking them in combat." She went silent, listening. Marcus could hear voices down the hallway, harsh, commanding, speaking in a language he didn't recognize. Pashto, maybe, or Farsi. Sarah held up 3 fingers, then pointed down the hall. 3 hostiles that direction. She signaled the plan. She'd go left, Marcus right, they'd flank and eliminate. They moved in perfect synchronization. Sarah had been right, these weren't amateurs. The 3 terrorists were positioned tactically, covering angles, maintaining communication. but they were focused on the rooms, searching for victims. They didn't expect an attack from behind. Sarah took the first one with a single shot to the head. Marcus got the second. The third spun, bringing his rifle up, but Sarah was already moving. She closed the distance in 2 seconds, deflected his rifle with one hand, and drove her knife into his throat with the other. Marcus stared. The whole thing had taken maybe 5 seconds. "Clear," Sarah whispered into a radio she'd taken from one of the fallen terrorists. "Team 2, what's your status?" Jake's voice crackled back. "We're in position. Got eyes on 4 hostiles in post-surgical." "On my mark, we engage simultaneously. 3, 2, 1, mark." The gunfire erupted from both ends of the floor. Marcus and Sarah pushed forward, moving room by room. Every time they encountered terrorists, Sarah was death incarnate. She'd spent months pretending to be just a nurse, moving slowly through hospital corridors, gentle and unassuming. Now she was fully unleashed, and it was terrifying to watch. A terrorist came around a corner. Sarah shot him twice before he could even register her presence. Another emerged from a patient room. She took him down with a controlled burst, then immediately swept the room to make sure no patients had been hit. They reached the ICU. 6 terrorists had gathered there, preparing to execute the helpless patients. Sarah assessed the situation in a heartbeat. "Flashbang," she whispered to Marcus. "You still have yours." He nodded. Every SEAL carried basic equipment even in recovery. He'd grabbed his go bag from his room. On 3. They breached hard and fast. The flashbang detonated in the center of the group. In the chaos that followed, Sarah and Marcus opened fire. It was brutal, efficient, and over in seconds. But one of the terrorists, only stunned, managed to get a shot off. The round caught Marcus in his already wounded shoulder, spinning him around. He went down hard. Sarah killed the shooter, then immediately dropped to Marcus's side. "How bad?" "Same shoulder, I'll live." The pain was incredible, but Marcus had been shot before. "Keep going." "Team 2, east side is clear. Status?" Ramirez's voice came back, strained. "We got them, but the specialist took one in the chest. He's down bad." Sarah's jaw tightened. "Get pressure on it, I'm coming to you." She helped Marcus to his feet. Together they moved through the ICU, checking on patients. Most were unconscious on ventilators. One elderly veteran was awake, eyes wide with terror. "It's okay, sir," Sarah told him gently, back to her nurse voice. "We're getting you out of here." They found Jake and Ramirez in post-surgical. The army specialist was on the floor, blood spreading across his chest. Sarah went to work immediately, her hands steady despite the combat they just survived. She packed the wound, started an IV from supplies in the ward, and got him stabilized. "He needs surgery, but he'll make it if we get him out soon," she said. "How many hostiles left?" Marcus asked. Sarah checked the radio she'd taken. The terrorists were communicating in frantic bursts now. "From what I can tell, maybe 25. They're starting to realize something's wrong. They've found the bodies." "And they're coming here," Jake said. "Let them come." Sarah stood up, blood on her hands, fire in her eyes. "We hold this floor until SWAT arrives. We protect these patients. That's the mission." She started setting up defensive positions, using hospital beds and equipment to create barriers and firing positions. Marcus watched her work and realized this was what she'd been trained for, not the one-on-one gunfights or the dramatic rescues. This, the impossible last stand, protecting the helpless against overwhelming odds. "Ramirez, you cover the east stairwell. Sullivan, west stairwell. Reed, you're with me on the central corridor." They could hear the terrorists coming up the stairs, a lot of them. "One more thing," Sarah said quietly. "If this goes bad, if they overrun us, I've rigged the gas lines in the central corridor. If I give the word, everyone pulls back to the ICU and seals the doors. Understand?" "You'll blow the whole floor," Marcus said. "Better than letting them," execute 34 helpless patients. She wasn't bluffing. Marcus could see it in her eyes. She would burn it all down before she let those people die. The attack came hard. The terrorists had figured out they were facing organized resistance, and they weren't happy about it. They came up both stairwells simultaneously, laying down suppressing fire. But Sarah had chosen her positions perfectly. The hospital's layout created natural choke points, and she'd placed them exactly where they needed to be. The terrorists couldn't advance without exposing themselves to crossfire. The battle raged for what felt like hours but was probably less than 10 minutes. Marcus's shoulder was on fire, blood soaking through the makeshift bandage Sarah had applied. Jake took a round in the thigh but kept fighting. Ramirez was steady as a rock, his Marine training evident in every controlled burst. And Sarah was everywhere, covering angles, directing fire, moving between positions to reinforce whoever needed help. She'd been right about the terrorists being professionals, but she was operating on a different level entirely. Marcus watched her drop 3 enemies in rapid succession, reload in less than 2 seconds, and immediately engage 3 more. This wasn't the quiet nurse who checked his blood pressure. This was a warrior in her element. "They're pulling back," Jake called out. Sarah immediately went to the radio. "Don't chase. Hold positions. This might be a tactical retreat before a major push." But it wasn't. The terrorists were running. Through the windows, Marcus could see flashing lights in the parking lot. SWAT had arrived. The terrorists who remained in the hospital were trapped. Sarah coordinated with the incoming SWAT team over the radio, directing them to where the hostiles were concentrated. The professional operators cleared the building floor by floor. It took another 20 minutes, but eventually, the all-clear was given. 30 minutes later, Marcus sat in the same ICU where they'd made their stand, getting his shoulder rebandaged. Again, a different nurse was working on him now. Sarah was in emergency surgery with the Army specialist, fighting to save his life. Jake limped over, his own leg freshly stitched. Final count just came in, 45 terrorists total. We took down 21 of them. Sarah personally killed 15. Marcus shook his head in disbelief. 15. They're saying it's one of the highest single-operator kill counts in a domestic engagement ever. Jake sat down heavily. And we thought she was just a nurse. She is a nurse, Marcus corrected. She's also a SEAL. Turns out she can be both. The hospital commander arrived an hour later, a stern Navy captain named Morrison. He'd been off-site during the attack and looked like he wanted to court-martial someone for letting it happen on his watch. "Where's Lieutenant Chen?" he demanded. "Surgery," Marcus told him, "saving the specialist's life." "I need a full debrief. How many patients did we lose?" "None on the 4th floor, sir. 0. Morrison stopped. "What?" Lieutenant Chen led a defense of the ICU and post-surgical ward. 34 patients who couldn't be evacuated. All survived. Against how many hostiles? By our count, she engaged approximately 35 to 40 terrorists over the course of the defense. Killed 15 personally. Coordinated our response, treated wounded, and held the floor until SWAT arrived. Morrison looked stunned. "Lieutenant Chen, the nurse who's been working here for 6 months. Lieutenant Chen, the SEAL who happens to be working as a nurse while on medical leave," Marcus corrected. The captain sat down slowly. "I had no idea. She never mentioned." "That's kind of the point, sir," Jake said. "She wasn't here to be a SEAL. She was here to be a nurse, until she needed to be both." Sarah emerged from surgery 3 hours later, still in scrubs, looking exhausted. The specialist would survive. She'd worked on him for 2 hours, repairing damage that would have killed him without immediate intervention. Marcus found her in the break room, drinking coffee with shaking hands. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind the crash that always came after combat. "Hey," he said softly. She looked up. "Hey, how's the shoulder?" Better than it was, you. I'm okay. But her hands told a different story. They wouldn't stop shaking. Marcus sat down next to her. I owe you an apology. For what? For underestimating you. For seeing scrubs and cartoon animals and assuming that was all there was to see. Sarah smiled tiredly. You're not the first, won't be the last. People see what they expect to see. A small woman in nurse's scrubs must be soft, must be safe, must be someone who needs protecting. She took a sip of coffee. They never expect someone who can protect them. You saved a lot of lives today. That's the job. Whether I'm wearing combat gear or scrubs, the mission's the same. Keep people alive. She looked at him. That's why I became a nurse in the first place. I got tired of only knowing how to take lives. I wanted to balance the scales a little. You going back to active duty? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. I don't know anymore. Today showed me I've still got it, the combat skills, the tactical thinking, but it also showed me that I can make a difference right here. Those patients upstairs, they needed a nurse who could also be a warrior. How often does that specific combination matter? Maybe once in a career, maybe never. She set down her coffee. Or maybe that's exactly what the world needs more of. People who can do both. Build and destroy, heal and fight. Create and protect. The door opened. Captain Morrison stood there with two other officers. They all looked at Sarah with a mixture of respect and awe. Lieutenant Chen, Morrison said formally, on behalf of the Naval Medical Center and the United States Navy, I want to thank you for your actions today. You saved 34 lives and prevented what could have been the worst terrorist attack on a medical facility in American history. Sarah stood. I was just doing my job, sir. Which job, SEAL or nurse? She smiled. Both, sir, always both. Morrison nodded slowly. I've spoken with Naval Special Warfare Command. They want you back. Full combat clearance effective immediately. Your choice of teams. Marcus watched Sarah's face. He saw the temptation there, the pull of returning to what she knew, what she was trained for. But he also saw something else. He saw her glance toward the door, toward the wards where patients were sleeping, recovering, healing. Patients she'd cared for. Patients she'd saved twice, once with medicine, once with violence. Permission to speak freely, sir? Sarah asked. Granted. I appreciate the offer, and I'm honored that Special Warfare wants me back, but I think I'm exactly where I need to be. She gestured around the hospital. These people need protection too, and they need care. I can give them both. Maybe that's more valuable than another trigger puller in the sandbox. Morrison considered this. You understand you're turning down a return to active SEAL operations. Yes, sir. I'll keep my qualifications current. I'll train. I'll be ready if I'm needed. But my primary duty is here, taking care of wounded warriors. She paused. Someone very smart once told me that the measure of a warrior isn't how many enemies they can kill. It's how many people they can save. I'd like to focus on the saving part for a while. The captain extended his hand. Then we're lucky to have you, Lieutenant, both versions of you. After the officers left, Marcus and Sarah sat in comfortable silence. Outside, the sun was rising over San Diego. The hospital was secured. The patients were safe. Life would go on. So, Marcus said eventually, when I get out of here, you want to grab coffee. Like actual coffee, not hospital break room coffee. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Is that you asking your nurse on a date, Lieutenant Reed? No, that's me asking a fellow SEAL who happens to be my nurse on a date. She smiled, a real smile that lit up her tired face. I think I'd like that. 3 months later, Marcus was fully recovered and back on active duty, but he visited the Naval Medical Center regularly, sometimes to see Sarah, sometimes to check on the other patients from that night. The Army specialist had made a full recovery. Jake was back with his team. Ramirez had retired from the Marines and started teaching high school. And Sarah continued to work as a nurse, taking care of wounded warriors, changing bandages, checking vitals, and bringing her unique combination of healing and protection to everyone who needed it. The hospital added a plaque in the fourth-floor corridor, listing the names of everyone who defended it that terrible night. At the top was Lieutenant Sarah Chen's name, with 2 designations listed after it: Navy SEAL, Navy Nurse.